Hello and welcome to a new video. It's me, Martin, and today we're going to be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of working for a private language institute in South Korea. These institutes are also regarded as Hagwons, the Korean name, and they do have a variety of advantages and disadvantages. So, if you've got any questions about working and living in South Korea, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. But let's dive in. So the first advantage for working for a Hagwon or a private language institute in Korea is the free housing. They offer a variety of opportunities to move into either an apartment, one of these blocks of flats that we call in the UK, or a villa, sort of a slightly larger, not so tall, slightly shorter building, or it could be a small little office studio flat. However, the good thing is it's free and you don't have to worry about paying so much in the terms of rent. It's minimal. If your housing isn't available, then normally the Hagwon would place you into a hotel for a few days before moving you into that facility, that housing that they're going to offer you. You just got to be careful about where the housing's located and how close or how far away it is from the Hagwon that you're going to be working at Monday to Friday. The second advantage for working for a Hagwon in South Korea is that your airfare will be refunded fully. You don't have to worry about paying out all that money and not getting any return for that outgoing. But once you arrive in South Korea, Hagwons would normally pay your airfare immediately or within a month or so. Typically, if you're working for a Hagwon as well and you finish your contract after 12 months, they will also pay for your airfare back home. So it's a great opportunity to fly in, get your airfare covered, and they'll also fly you back home. The third advantage of working for a Hagwon in South Korea is the opportunity for a bonus after 12 months service. Typically, that Hagwon will pay you the equivalent of 1 month's salary on top of your normal salary. Sort of a severance or a thank you for completing the 12 months that you signed up for. And there's nothing stopping you to renew your contract should you wish to. The fourth advantage for working in South Korea is the food. Korean cuisine is internationally recognized and is worldwide known for having such a broad depth of culinary tastes. It's an amazing culture, and if you are really a foodie and you love food and you want to try as much as possible and not get bored, then you'll find Korean food ticks all those boxes. They eat fresh fish, they eat barbecued meat, they eat vegetables, they eat so much. And when you get to eat a particular dish in Korea, they normally add these side dishes as well. It's absolutely amazing and it's affordable, so the salary that you get paid will more often than not be an opportunity for you to experience such a wide variety of food in South Korea. So this is one of the best advantages for working for a Hagwon or anywhere else for that matter. The fifth advantage for working for a Hagwon is location. Now, if you want to work in a particular location in South Korea, then you'll be able to find a Hagwon, a private language institute, to work for. So if you want to work in Busan, then you'll be able to find a variety of different Hagwons in Busan. If you want to work in Seoul, again, you'll find loads in Seoul. So you're not really limited to a particular location when it comes down to working for a Hagwon. However, if you go and work for EPIC, they will normally just post you out to a particular location, and you just have to accept it, I'm afraid. Okay, so we looked at a variety of advantages when it comes down to working for a Hagwon. Let's look at the disadvantages. Now, the first disadvantage that I found when it came to working at a Hagwon in South Korea, these private language institutes, private academies, is the workload. You're going to be working long hours, teaching 8 hours a day or so, at least, perhaps around 30 to 40 hours a week, and you're not really going to have much of a break in between the classes. Typically, a Hagwon would say, okay, you've got 50-minute classes, you've got 10 minutes break in between, and they'll say that's your break. However, what they fail to mention is the fact that you've got no lunch break, no hour break in between, and they calculate and accrue all those 10 minutes between lessons as a break. Consider that you're going to be working long hours teaching, you've got to plan those lessons, and you're going to have very little time for yourself. You're going to find yourself being quite exhausted, so take that into mind when you're looking for a job at a Hagwon. The second disadvantage about working at a Hagwon is vacation days. Now, in the UK, for example, if you're working full-time, it's normally considered suitable to have about 28 days holiday a year. Fortunately for me, I was working for a variety of employers where I had 35 days off a year, but that was a while ago, and things aren't as generous as they are nowadays. However, for a Hagwon, if you're going to work for an English institute in South Korea, expect 10 days. That is 10 days vacation a year. I think the legal requirement is 11, but for me, when I was working at a Hagwon, it was 10 days, and it was dictated by the school when you would have that particular time off, that week off. 5 days, Monday to Friday in the summer, 5 days in the winter. And I suppose for me, when I took the kids to Seoul one day, sort of a break and that side of things, I was working, I was taking the kids to Seoul, and I inquired about having a day off in lieu, and they laughed. They said, nah, you're not going to have that day off. Yeah, you took the kids to Seoul, but we paid for your trip to Seoul. And I was flabbergasted because it was my own time. I took the kids to Seoul. And also in the winter, I took the kids to the UK, 2 weeks. I was working again, and I inquired about having a week off for the winter. And again, they said, no, you went off to the UK with the kids. Everything was paid for, so no, we're not going to give you a holiday. So be prepared to accept the fact that you're going to have a very short holiday in the summer and a very short holiday in the winter, coupled with the long working hours. All you're going to do during that time is sleep in and rest in. That's all you're going to do. The third disadvantage about working at a Hagwon is the contract. Now, when it comes down to the contract, what's written is written, but in my experience, when you're dealing with a Hagwon, they tend to see how far they can bend that contract to their own advantage. When you arrive in Korea, make sure that they've registered you into the Korean Pension Fund, the national pension, as well as the National Health Insurance Scheme. It's so important. And I remember falling sick one day. I went to the doctors. I gave them my residence number, and my national health insurance number wasn't recognised, and I realised at that point that my employer at the Hagwon hadn't even registered me into that scheme. He'd only said, yeah, you pay 50%, I pay 50%, and I said, well, what if it's a huge operation and they have, it's like 10 million won? Do I expect 5 million won for me to pay and you to pay 5 million? It doesn't make sense. And then, with the national health insurance scheme in Korea, it'll be hugely reduced. And what I failed to realise was he hadn't even registered me into that. He didn't do this, and I was shocked. And this also led me into the pension scheme, the national pension scheme. I inquired whether I was registered, and nope, he hadn't even registered me into the pension scheme. He deducted my money, my pension, every month from my payslip, but failed to pay my pension and was just pocketing the money from me. Be sure to check the contract, and be sure to check that everything's above board and transparent, and get in touch with the Korean authorities to double check to make sure everything's done legally. The fourth disadvantage I found about working at a private academy in Korea was the stability. Working at a Hagwon is, it's there for profit. The parents send their kids off to private language institute, whether it's maths, Chinese, English, science, whatever it is, to learn on top of what they're learning in a public school. For those that work for a Hagwon, and for those English teachers that decide to work for a Hagwon, your stability is only there if it makes a profit. If the Hagwon doesn't make a profit and the owner decides to close shop, he'll close up the business and you'll be left without an apartment, without any form of income, and he could close any time. So make sure everything's done legally, and make sure that the Hagwon that you're working for is being established for a while now, and try and speak to the teachers before you move into that Hagwon to see what sort of things that they have to say about their experience at the Hagwon. The fifth disadvantage about working for a Hagwon for me was the parents. This disadvantage is usually overlooked. However, remember that the kids that are being sent to the Hagwon, the parents are paying for them to attend. It's important for the parents that their kids receive a good education for the money that they're paying. And if things don't go well, or if the parents decide to complain about you, then that is going to go back to you. The owner is going to receive feedback from the parents, then he's going to take that feedback and offload to you and to tell you to change things without any prior awareness or on your behalf. When things go well, you will receive no news or no support or no congratulatory remarks on that. And I remember when I was working for a Hagwon all those years ago in Korea, and the parents went to the director and said, I want my kid to learn more grammar in the lesson. And then I received the message from the director saying, we want you to teach more grammar in the lesson. And I went, okay. I decided to teach for the entire week just grammar. And then, lo and behold, the parents complained and said, my kid isn't learning how to speak or learning new vocabulary. All he's doing is learning grammar and not enjoying the lesson anymore. And then the director came to see me and said, you need to try and teach more vocabulary and more conversation. And I said to him, but last week you told me to teach more grammar, which I'm doing. And now you're telling me not to teach grammar? So parents will have a huge influence on what's being taught in the school. And if a parent doesn't like what's being taught in that Hagwon, in that private academy, then they'll vote with their feet and take their kid out and take him to or her to a new private academy. And he or she, their parents, will tell other parents and say, this Hagwon, this academy is not so good. I've taken my kid here and he's doing much better. And then, it will spread around between all the families that send their kids off to that Hagwon. So parents are very influential when you're working at a Hagwon, and I always try, when I worked at the Hagwon, I always tried to get on with the parents and spend a bit of time speaking to them and getting to know a bit more about their background, what they wanted, rather than trying to listen to the directors saying, or listening to second-hand information from them, I suppose. Okay, so that was my 5 advantages and 5 disadvantages about working at a private academy in South Korea. Fortunately for me, I don't work at a Hagwon anymore. It's been a long time and I don't see myself working for a Hagwon any time longer. However, if you want to ask me any questions about working or living in South Korea, feel free to comment below. I'll be more than happy to help answer any queries that you have. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I really appreciate all the support. If you could click that like button, that would be great. If you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button. I've got more content coming out soon in relation to working and living in South Korea. Take it easy, stay safe, and happy teaching. Bye bye.